From Wasilla, Alaska, The Interview. Sarah Palin with Charles Gibson continues.
Didn't George Bush come to Washington 8 years ago talking about reforming Washington in the same kind of language? Ran as something of a maverick, actually. Came to Washington, 8 years, hasn't changed the ethos in Washington particularly. Why are you any different?
We're promising the reform, and we are mavericks. There's no doubt in anybody's mind now across America who's paying attention to the presidential race here that I am a Washington outsider. I mean, look at where you are. I am a Washington outsider. I do not have those allegiances to the power brokers, to the lobbyists. We need someone like that in Washington, someone committed to the American people and implementing their will, not the power brokers' will.
You mentioned in the three principles that you change spending. You also talked about taxes. Why do you both keep saying that Obama is going to raise people's taxes? It's been pretty clear what he intends. He's talked about middle-class tax cuts, extending Bush tax cuts on everything but people who own or earn more than $250,000 a year. Cuts taxes on over 91% of the country. Why do you keep saying he's going to raise people's taxes?
Well, I would argue with the whole premise of that his mission is to not increase taxes. He's had 94 opportunities to either vote for a tax cut or not support tax increases, and 94 times he's been on the other side of what I believe the majority of Americans want.
One of John McCain's central campaign arguments, tenets of his campaign, is eliminating earmarks.
And the first big spending pork barrel earmark bill that comes across my desk, I will veto it. I will make them famous, and you will know their names.
Are you with John McCain on that?
I certainly am. And of course, the poster child for the earmarks was Alaska's, what people in the lower 48 refer to, the bridge to nowhere. Of course, it was a bridge to a community with an airport in southeast Alaska. But that was excessive, and an earmark like that, not even supported necessarily by the majority of Alaskans. We killed that earmark, we killed that project, and as I've said over and over, if Alaska wants that bridge, $300–400 million over to that island with an airport, we'll find a way to build it ourselves. The rest of the country doesn't have to build that for us.
You have said continually that I said to Congress, thanks, but no thanks. If we're going to build that bridge, we'll build it ourselves.
Right.
But it's now pretty clearly documented. You supported that bridge before you opposed it. You were wearing a T-shirt in the 2006 campaign, showed your support for the bridge to nowhere.
I was wearing a T-shirt with the zip code of the community that was asking for that bridge, and not all the people in that community even were asking for a $400 or $300 million bridge.
But you turned against it after Congress had basically pulled the plug on it, and after it became a national embarrassment to the state of Alaska. So do you want to revise and extend your remarks?
It has always been an embarrassment that abuse of the earmark process has been accepted in Congress, and that's what John McCain has fought, and that's what I joined him in fighting.
But you were for it before you were against it. You were solidly for it for quite some period of time until Congress pulled the plug.
I was for infrastructure being built in the state, and it's not inappropriate for a mayor or for a governor to request and to work with their Congress to plug into the federal budget, along with every other state, a share of the federal budget for infrastructure.
But you didn't say no to Congress, we'll build it ourselves, until after they'd pulled the plug, correct?
No, because Congress still allowed those dollars to come into Alaska. They did. Well, transportation fund dollars still came into Alaska. It was our choice, Charlie, whether we were going to spend it on a bridge or not. And I said, thanks, but no thanks. We're not going to spend it on the bridge.
They appropriated $223 million, I think, for the bridge. Then when the project died, that money was still there. And the state of Alaska kept that money. Is that consistent with the image of a reformer?
It certainly is. Those are infrastructure dollars that a state government and a local government needs to figure out how to best prioritize those federal funds.
When you were a mayor of Wasilla, you hired a very prominent lobbyist to get Wasilla money.
We did. We paid $30,000 for a lobbyist who was in D.C. because we're thousands and thousands of miles away from D.C. It would have cost us a lot more to be traveling back and forth from this small community.
The state of Alaska in 2008 got $155 million in earmarks for a population of 670,000 people. That's $231 per person in Alaska. State of Illinois, Obama state, got $22 per person. You got 10 times per person as much. How does that square with being a reformer?
We have drastically reduced our earmark requests.
Governor, this year, requested $3.2 million for researching the genetics of harbor seals, money to study the mating habits of crabs. Isn't that exactly the kind of thing that John McCain is objecting to?
Those requests through our research divisions and our wildlife departments and our universities did come through that system, but wanting it to be in the light of day, not behind closed doors with lobbyists making deals with Congress, and it's not going to be accepted in a McCain-Palin administration. Earmark abuse will stop.